This week, Tod Beardsley from Run Zero is with us to discuss the future, or death, of vulnerability management. Then for this week's topic segment, we discuss what we've learned from all the NPM compromises over the last 3 weeks. Finally, in the enterprise security news, funding and acquisitions are going crazy, an exciting new canary token. Banks have a more sedate approach to agentic AI, MCP security, the future subprime code crash of 2028. Is security worried about the wrong risks? Botnets are back in the headlines. Some BS research. Journalists getting duped by AI. And Animal Crossing villagers are organizing against Tom Nook. All that and more on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
It's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy National Aging Awareness Day. This is episode 425, recorded on Thursday, September 18th, 2025. I am your host, Adrian Sanabria. That is a real national day. It's actually National HIV, AIDS, and National Aging Awareness Day. I don't know why those are combined. Maybe stuff is going on in the nursing homes. I don't know. Joining me is the Admiral of ASPM, the Captain of Content, Katie Teitler-Centula. How you doing, Katie?
Who am I? Yeah, no, it's actually not all that funny. I'm quite aware that I am aging and I am, worried about the future.
I think that's going to be a theme as we go through the intros here.
A little bit worried about, brain health and things like that these days. So how are you?
I am also very aware of my aging, and maybe my laptop is aging too. It's been temperamental. Also joining us, the Dean of Data Science, the Knight of Neurodiversity, the Watcher of Data Center Waste, Jackie McGuire. How you doing, Jackie?
I'm old AF. I watched the MTV VMAs and I legit did not recognize like 75% of the artists that were nominated for videos. And the ones I did, it's just because they're getting like the video vanguard because they're old as crap and their videos are 20 years old.
I'm shocked that's still a thing.
I know.
I didn't think MTV was a thing anymore.
They said the F word on it too. I was quite offended. As everybody knows, I am extremely sensitive to profanity, and it was totally uncensored. But I don't know. I'm dealing with my second or third midlife crisis by working out, so I'm actually in like the best shape of my life. So I'm pretending I'm not worried about aging right now.
There you go.
Totally fine.
That's how to handle it. Also joining us, the Baron of Bloodhound, the Pirate King of PowerShell, Sean Metcalf. How you doing, Sean?
Hey, Adrian, doing good. Yeah, National Aging Day, or as they call it, your birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, I legitimately have no idea how old everyone is here. I think Jackie's mentioned it once or twice. Katie's probably mentioned it. But I don't know how old anybody is anymore. Like, it's not something I ask or even really wonder about. So every now and then I learn somebody's age and I'm like, I thought they were 10 years older than me.
Yeah, it's what happens is you get find out they're your age and you're like, oh, God damn, I thought you were 10 years older than me. That probably means I look like that.
I don't say that, but I think that. I'm in my old age, like I censor what comes out of the mouth. And finally, joining us, the connoisseur of cloud security, our single origin co-host and resident coffee sommelier, Ayman El-Sawar. How you doing, Ayman?
Hey, Adrian. I brought some antioxidants today. It's black tea for my anti-aging because I knew it was I'm trying some preventative stuff here.
Ayman moisturizes.
I'm drinking
He's
Hotel
fine.
Keurig coffee.
Oh, okay. That's like accelerating your aging.
Yes, probably. That's exactly, I was going to say, those are the tasting notes of this coffee.
Yeah.
Accelerated age.
The hint of microplastics is amazing.
Yeah.
Just,
I always
just
like punctured foil and microplastics in my coffee.
Yeah, the aluminum foil really comes through. It blossoms.
Forget about iron. We all need aluminum.
Right? Yeah.
All right, quick announcement, then we'll jump into our interview for this week. Join us for InfoSec World 2025, which is October 27th through 29th in sunny Lake Buena Vista, Florida, at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort. We've got workshops before and after the event, October 25th and 26th, and then October 29th and 30th. And you can save 25% with code ISW25-SW at securityweekly.com/ISW2025. Today's interview is sponsored by Run Zero. Today's topic is the future or maybe death of vulnerability management. We are excited to have Tod Beardsley, VP of Security Research from Run Zero, with us today. You might say Tod knows his way around a vulnerability. He's seen a thing or two in his 30 years of security experience. So if anyone here is qualified to call the time of death for vulnerability management, it's Tod. Welcome to the show, Tod. No pressure.
Well, this is a grim opening. We're all talking about aging and death, and I'm here for it as a recovering goth. Yep.
Amazing.
I was born technically in the mid 20th century. So not the late 20th century.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So
Run Zero also defines my workout plan. So
I
run exactly 0.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. Love it.
Unless something's chasing me.
Yes. There's a really good Zombie 5K is a delightful app. It's been around for years, but it's basically a radio play that puts you in the position of running away from extremely slow zombies.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Brilliant idea.
Do they pick up the pace as you slow down?
It's not that smart. It's all like kind of scripted narrative, but it's like, oh, you better keep up, like all that. So it's like, oh, there's one right behind you. He's about 100 yards away. And it's so cool. It's so fun. I really like it. I really like it a lot. I wish there was more like kind of fake immersive things like that for audio.
But what happens if your brain gets used to not speeding up because it's a fake zombie apocalypse, and then there's a real one, and your muscles aren't conditioned, and the lactic acid builds up, and you fall over and you get eaten by a zombie?
We've got the technology to do augmented reality now, though, so it could be more than sound.
You could.
Oh my God.
$100 of video on your face.
See, that's what the zombies want you to think, is that there's no zombie apocalypse.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah. So speaking of running, if you want to see one of the most, if you want to cringe so hard your face breaks and falls off, Mark Zuckerberg and Diplo debuted Meta's new smart glasses today by going for a run with them.
I'm sure it was wonderful.
Happy Googling.
Was he running with an American flag? Was Zuckerberg
he was running with
American?
Diplo. And like, I don't even think 75% of the people in that audience could drive legally the last time Diplo had a record on the radio. And yep. It was, and they're the wraparound.
Okay, guys, we got a cyber yell.
I was going to try to pivot back to vulnerability management there, but you take it away, Adrian.
Zombies.
Please bring us back.
Unpatched servers.
I'm gonna pull the handbrake here and do a J-turn into vulnerability management.
Dope.
And so it's I think it's a really good time to be talking about this. And I was really jazzed to see that you joined Run Zero, Tod. Harbor Master as well, doing some amazing work there. In the moment, I completely forget his real name. I just remember
Harbor
his
Master
handle.
is at Gray Noise.
Gray Noise.
But we were both on a weekly show for a long time, and it was like us and some people from Volnchak were on there.
Census.
And Census is on there. So that was Stormwatch.
That's the confusion. Sorry,
Write
that's
to
the
your
confusion.
senator and demand the return of Stormwatch.
But both talking a lot about CVEs and vulnerabilities. He's doing some amazing research. Looking at old vulnerabilities getting hit, what vulnerabilities are currently getting hit. And this is the research I'm personally very interested in and have been for a while. I remember talking to the Kenna, formerly Risk IQ folks, very early days when I was still working in the enterprise before I was an industry analyst. And we didn't have it solved then, and I feel like we don't really have it solved now. So I don't know if you can kind of underscore like this time in vulnerability management. It really does feel like the market's about to be disrupted. The Tenables, Qualys, Rapid7s haven't solved the problem. In fact, they've given birth to entire subcategories of risk-based vulnerability management products just to fix the problem that they created, right? By, I think favoring,
it's a great business.
and to me, the whole problem is kind of a quantity over quality thing, right?
Yes.
I call it the security industry's hoarding problem. Like we're so concerned about having, detecting every single CVE. Like we don't notice that this thing has default creds and this thing is misconfigured. And, I think there's a perception problem there. But Todd, I want to hear from your viewpoint, having been very close to this for a very long time. Like what do you see the kind of core problem that we need to address here? Or is that even clear?
Yeah, there's a couple things going on in that. So in the interest of full disclosure, I am on the CVE board. And so I hang out with other CVE people. I like the CVE program. I think the CVE program is valuable. That said, CVE is not the end all be all of everything you need to worry about, right? Like there is a strong tendency in many, many organizations, some of them regulated, some of them just like free and open out in the world, whatever, to like take your list of CVEs and say, this is my target list. And I'm going to check off all of these. I'm going to make sure I don't have them in my environment. I'm going to make sure that like these vulnerabilities are taken care of somehow, right? Like usually through patches, sometimes through something more complicated, which is fine. It's a way to do things, especially if you're in a regulated industry that has a regulation along the lines of thou shalt fix every CVE that's CVSS 7 or more. That is a very succinct and easy way to create a wonderful checklist, and you can just check them off. Everyone loves checking off on a checklist. That will not stop you from getting hacked. It will keep your job, but it won't stop you from getting compromised, right? Because things that never have a CVE typically are things like you mentioned. Default credentials leap to mind, and
there are a few CVEs for default credentials
every once in a while. See, this is where like CVE gets funny, and it's
very confusing.
Go into the weeds if you like. Happy to, but this is like I can name everything that wouldn't get a CVE, and I'm positive someone on this very call can say like, but what about that one for this thing? And so yes, there are always exceptions because CVE is not monolithic. There's like 460 or something maybe different CVE numbering authorities out there. We all have a set of rules that we use, right? But like the first rule of is it a vulnerability for CVE is the vendor says it's a vulnerability. And it's like, okay, well, like, and I can live with that, right? Because the corollary is not true, by the way. If the vendor says it's not a vulnerability, still probably a vulnerability. But anyway, the whole point of that diatribe wander is CVE, I do think is important for, known publicly identified vulnerabilities. It should be a component of your vulnerability management system, right? Like you kind of need CVE to do that. But there's so many other things: default passwords, misconfigurations, like accidental exposure to the network, end of life. This has been coming up just recently on the CVE board for some reason. Somebody had come in and saying like, hey, we're dealing with this end of life thing. We know end of life is a big deal and sometimes a problem. And
speaking of aging awareness day,
speaking of aging awareness, like, are you aware of how old your operating system is? And like, we don't really have a good way. We don't have a CVE like way to like catalog that and notate it. And sometimes it's secret. And sometimes it's just like you discover it's end of life when you notice you haven't gotten a patch in a year
that is not the best way to find out.
No, but like that's kind of how it works in open source, right? Like in open source land, like projects just kind of get shelved or they become stable. I have an open source project. I haven't committed a patch in 3 years because it's stable. Is it also end of life? Maybe.
Well, hardware too. I think hardware is one of the big ones. One of the conferences you and I were talking about, Todd, I spent a long time listening to lots of interesting things about EOL hardware and how people forget about all these switches and things that they ultimately have access to some of their cloud networks.
Yeah, for sure. Hardware is on the one hand a little bit trickier, right? Because like the firmware, which is what runs on the hardware, is really the thing that tends to go EOL. Hardware is a physical thing, right? And is subject to physical stresses. And so, which is where like the whole end of life terminology came from in manufacturing, right? It was mostly in automotive manufacturing, some other areas. But it's like the piece will wear out and replacement parts will not be available. That's like the original classical definition of EOL. And software is funny because like it doesn't experience the real world, right? Software is imaginary, and it doesn't experience chemical reactions, and it doesn't experience friction and all this stuff. And it could run forever, which is the insidious thing about EOL. The day of EOL for Windows 10 is October 14th, 2025. Depending on when you listen to this, this may be the recent past. But for many of you listening, it is the immediate future. And on October 15th, it's not like Windows just like gives up the ghost, right? It doesn't just like stop working, or something bad doesn't generally happen on that day. It happens to be a Tuesday. It happens to be Patch Tuesday. And so I expect to see a nice healthy passel of patches for Windows 10 on October 14th. And I expect to see no patches, I guess, in November, like 4 weeks later. So like, that's kind of your window of like, well, if you really haven't done anything yet, that's when you have to do it. And by the way, none of this is described in CVE. So like if you're a security practitioner and your job is to make sure your ship is shaped, I guess, and your only tool is CVE, like this will not come up for you, right? And the reason why, by the way, we almost never issue like CVEs for a product that is end of life based on its end of lifeness, is because of this, because there's technically no problem with end of life software right now. The problem happens later. The problem happens when there is a bug and there is no patch, and there won't be a
forever
patch.
vuln. Yeah.
Right. And that thing will get a CVE, right? Like that vulnerability will. And so the danger of issuing an end of life flavored CVE itself is that it starts masking all that future stuff, right?
Well, and it's also very complex, right? Like Microsoft has extended support. Like maybe some people still get patches support, and others don't. Or sometimes like they're just soft on it. Like there's a petition going around right now to extend extend Windows 10 longer. And sometimes Microsoft capitulates, and even though it's end of life, they'll still send out a patch.
And they've done it every time, right? Like not for every bug, but like every end of life for Windows in all of recorded history of Windows, right? There has been some bug that leads to some global catastrophe of varying levels that Microsoft says, oh, fine, here you go. Here's your patch. Now, come on, pay up. Like we have things to do.
Yeah. And Windows 10 has been out for 10 years now. It came out in late July.
Yeah.
10 years ago in 2015. So come on, let's
get
off this decade long operating system that has been aging and continues to age.
They're in a weird position, and I've seen that they're floating different ideas of extended support. I do expect extended support for Windows 10 to be different from like the last iterations of end of life. Like, I mean, I was around for end of life for NT4.0, right? And that was a hard stop, and it didn't matter that there were security bugs because at
MSO 8067 was a forever vuln for
And there are vulnerabilities today in Windows NT and in Windows 2000 and in Windows 2002 and 2006 and all of those, right? That will never be patched, and that's fine, right? Because that's how the world works, right? And it's not just like, calculated monopolists like doing economy on it, right? It is because like time moves on, right? And like there are features of modern operating systems that are just absent in older operating systems. So even if it's not an issue of like, oh, well, there's like this initial access bug that gets you, access, modern operating systems have like more complex like sandboxing and partitioning and all this other stuff that like you get kind of for free being like it's already spent. They've already done all the research and all the work to put it in these operating systems, and not just Windows, right? Like Canonical is in this boat, Red Hat is in this boat, Cisco is in this boat. Cisco makes an operating system. It's confusingly called iOS, and and those things go end of life much faster usually than Windows does. But like later versions of iOS in the main tend to be better. So, and not just for patchability, just for like internal security architecture.
Yeah, I actually, in a lot of the advisory calls I do, I recommend asset age measured by when that operating system was installed as a very useful metric, because in general, the age of your infrastructure, the age of your software can often be tied to the level of risk of those systems.
Yep.
So in our topic segment today, we're talking about the NPM incidents that have happened over the last couple of weeks. And I noticed, so the first one was just one package. It was NX, right? Yep. And then the second one, they hit a couple of maintainers of very popular NPM packages.
There was a DuckDB NPM package in there, which made me very sad.
Was
how dare you go after DuckDB? DuckDB is a gift from the heavens.
It is truly. And the second one hit 20 packages, and then the third hit over 500, 555 at the last count that I saw. And for the second one, I saw the main guy that got hit owned 19 of those 20 packages. And I saw that each one got assigned to CVE. And now I'm looking at this third one thinking, are all 555 of those that got malware appended to them getting assigned to CVE?
Yeah.
Like
that's the thing.
Is that the right way to use?
I don't know. Like, I generally speaking am against issuing a CVE for the presence of malware. So like the go-to example is the Giatan issue of a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, where it was like a poisoned XZ utils package that would get you into SSA. It was complicated and crazy and, perversely beautiful. And CISA ultimately issued a CVE for that, right? Saying like, hey, there is a poisoned version of XZ utils out there. Here's the CVE. It was contentious then to issue that, and it's still contentious for like all this NPM stuff, because like, I mean, technically, is it a vulnerability? It's as designed by somebody that the malware is there, and there is versions that are bad, right? And so avoid those versions, which you can say about every vulnerability though. So like it gets really complicated. The issue of like, should we have 500 CVEs for 500 of these malware things? I don't think you should have CVEs for the presence of injected like coin miners and stuff like that. But if you are going to do that, it should be easy. It should be basically automatable to say like, oh, here they all are, and you just, you spit them out like with there is something called CVE lib, and it will automatically write CVEs for you.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, and it's pretty cool. No one uses it, by the way. Every CVE is like lovingly handcrafted, as far as I can tell. The Linux kernel people have it.
Not these 555 NPM ones, I guarantee you.
But there are some outfits that have gotten to a point of like automating because they do so much volume, and Linux kernel is one of them. They put out an average of, I think it's like 15 or 20 CVEs a week. And it's all hooked into like just all their bug tracking. So it's like, smells like a security vulnerability, slap a CV on it, ship it out the door, which is the way you should be doing it, right? Like if that's like, we're always talking about like, how do we scale? And then people get mad when you scale, when you say like, well, I have another 1,000 CVEs for you. It's like, oh, but that's all noise. And how am I supposed to tell? It's like, well, maybe don't use CVE as a threat intel feed. Maybe it's kind of crummy as a threat intel feed. Maybe it's just something, it is a dictionary of vulnerabilities that have been publicly identified so we can talk about them. That is like owning purpose.
It's like owning a small used car dealership and trying to use all auto recalls to manage how you manage your car dealership, because like you may only have.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you probably don't need to worry about 99.5% of those recalls because you don't even have those cars on your lot, and even if you do,
it's a very backwards way of looking at your inventory, right? Like, and that example like really highlights it in a very physical and visceral way. You know, like I would say, thank you. I would say that like step 0 is, you know, get your asset management story under control. Like, what do you have in your network? Corollary, what is your network? You know, let's pretend we have some boundaries, and the boundaries are all like fanciful and imaginary and all that, but that's fine. Like, you start from somewhere, and then once you have your asset, and that's the thing, it's like once you have your assets, now I can start doing like some profiling of like, what would, if I was a bad guy, what would I go after? You know, that's kind of how in my ideal world, that's how people would do it. But what people end up doing, as I've seen, I used to work at a vulnerability management company, and people use their vulnerability management suite of tools as their asset management. You know, in practicality, they may have somebody who's in charge of asset management, and they're using the best asset management software out there, which is called Excel, and they enter it in, and they tell you, and they will type the MAC addresses, and they type the IP addresses, and they say who the owner is, and they're in a cell, right? And so inevitably this starts failing, and so they're like, oh well, if I just export from my VM to my Excel, then now I can do asset management much more efficiently. It's like, cool, but that's not what VM is for. and that's fine. It's a fine use of it. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's impossible to hold it wrong, right? Like, you can always, if the tool works for the thing that like keeps you in business, great, wonderful, do it. But what my theory presupposes is maybe be more intentional about your asset management. And that's an area that Run Zero, I think, really excels in.
Well, I mean, that is the challenge, right? It is the challenge where you have asset management and then you have vulnerability management, and the two theoretically should be reporting on the same things, right? Yep. But very often asset management is missing, say it has 80%, is missing 20%. And vulnerability management comes back with saying that you have 120% of these things that are problematic. So how to determine what is the solution for that? Where do you think people should head in order to get a better grip on what they have and what the risk is, and which things they should focus on first?
I would say that the goal would be to like try to get as much visibility into the networks that you actually have responsibility for and control for, they're often not the same. And like have that visibility story like in hand. It's like, this is how we do asset management, and here's the kinds of assets we have. And we have like, you know, our desktop environment, because for some reason we're all going to offices, is all Windows, right? And but we do also have all of our thermostats that are also bridged on this network, which I wasn't expecting, but now I can see that, right? And so now I can know, right? You know, just having that like just fairly constant, just like constant probing, scanning, you know, active or passive, active is better, passive is fine, of the environment, right, that you care about, and then taking that and saying like, okay, cool, now I know this stuff. What am I actually vulnerable to? And software vulnerabilities is going to be like one of those 7 or 8 things, right? Like software vulnerabilities, keep up on that. People know how to auto patch. Like I remember very distinctly when Google Chrome rolled out like, hey, we're just going to patch your browser out from under you. That's cool, right? And everyone was like, no, you can't do that. You'll crash all my stuff. And then it turns out it's fine. More or less.
Windows too.
Fine.
Automatically reboots.
Windows too. Windows almost always is fine.
Assuming it reboots.
Yeah. And there's not like a interstitial of like, hey, did you want to upgrade? And but yeah, I think that like just like having a good story, mainly to tell yourself, but like to tell the people that you're responsible to. It's like, yeah, we know what's on our network, right? Like, and just that is sometimes feels intractable, especially if you're in a place, right? Like you have a physical place that you do work, like a factory or a hospital or a bank or something like that. And that place has been extant for 20 years and things pile up over time, right? And so like and so all of this sounds like you got to eat your vegetables kind of advice. You do have to eat your vegetables. Yeah. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but you do have to eat your vegetables. And some of those vegetables are, just the fundamentals of like, check your, it's asset management through scanning, asset management and exposure management through like unauthenticated agentless checks, I think is the best way to do it. And that's another reason why I work at Run Zero, because I think that vulnerability management that runs around and logs into everything on the network that it can find is kind of risky for, I hope
that is a vulnerability.
It itself is a vulnerability. Like the M-Trends report, which is starting to get old now. I think it was like last winter or something. They put something out saying like 4 of the 5 software vulnerabilities that are implicated in an initial access incident that resulted in a breach started on security devices. So it's like, wow. Oh, cool. Good job, security industry. So like, and security devices being things like VPNs and firewalls and proxies, right? Like these are the things you don't really want, right? These are all grudge buys. Like no one is making money by like installing a firewall, but you have to have it, right? You have to have it to keep bad guys out. And so, okay, well, fine. I will claw away some budget from the thing I actually want to do of making widgets and put it into my security, and boop, now my security just got popped because I bought that security thing. Awesome. Like that it sucks. That like everyone on this call should feel bad about that, even if you're not involved in that sales cycle. Like this is a failure of the industry.
Yeah, and for me, where Run Zero comes up in conversation is often when I'm talking about the difference between a scan-driven approach. I talk to companies where nobody patches anything, nobody updates or changes anything unless it shows up on a vulnerability scan, and the security team throws that into an Excel spreadsheet and throws it over the wall at the engineers, right? And then I talk to companies that don't use vulnerability scanners at all. They just have a really advanced, like they automate patching everything. Everything's just fully automated. Yeah. And they maybe run it once a quarter for some compliance thing or something like that.
Yep. There's usually some FISMA reason to do it. Yeah.
And where Run Zero comes up is like there's that scan-driven approach, and then what I think of as an intelligence-driven approach, where, like you said, you have a really good inventory of everything you've got, and then when
that
news headline comes out,
and hopefully it alerts you when something new shows up and all that.
And when you get a notice that, hey, Ubiquity has a problem or something like that, you have a database where you can go do a quick search. Like you guys put out a blog post every time, like there's a big thing. It's like, here's how to find this in Run Zero.
I am extremely.
And you go to the search prompt and you type in manufacturer equals Sonic Wall. That's it. That's how you find it.
Well, and so we have a service, rapid response. You don't actually have to be a Run Zero customer to follow our blog. It's unpaywalled and all that. But like, we'll talk about the thing, and if there's a CVE, we'll talk about that. But sometimes there's not. And we give a couple sentences of just like, this is bad because blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, we do have that, right? We have like, if you happen to be a Run Zero customer, thank you for your patronage, and here is the exact query string you can run right now, which does not kick off like a new scan. It doesn't because this is the other problem that we run into, like all that we hear about all the time these days with vulnerability management is like when there's a new bug, right, that has, let's say it's a perfect bug, right? Like it's remote unauthenticated code execution and it has a CVE ID. Wonderful. This is what we were training for our entire lives. And so you go out and then it hits, right? And people are talking about it, and Gossy the dog like posts about it. So everybody knows about it. And then I go to my console for my vulnerability management solution. I'm like, okay, I need to know this. Well, we don't have a signature for it yet. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Tick tock. Okay. So now a day passes.
Somebody's got to build the plugin. It's got to go through QA. It's got to, then eventually.
But even when all of that is done, right, now I get it, and I have
a week later,
signature,
right?
Let's say it was a super fast turnaround of like a day, and and so now I'm on day 1. I'm like, all right, I have my signature. Am I exposed to this? The only question I need answered right now: am I exposed to this? Well, now you have to scan. It's like, oh, God dang it. Like, I was just scanning. Like, why do I have to scan again when you have all the things right here? Yeah. You could just tell. And so So this is like, I think, a big differentiator. Not to get too salesy, I'm a terrible salesperson, but like with all these queries that we put out on our blog, which is free, you just hit your database right now, like, and almost never do we have to like build a new thing to find the thing, right? Because all of our scans are unauthenticated. So like, I'm not tied to, I have to log into the thing to make sure in the Windows registry that the patch for this thing that you care about is installed or not, right? So like, that's not a way we do it, right? That is the way that like your big 3 VMs do it 9 times out of 10, I think technically 10 times out of 11. I think 9% right now they're averaging of unoff. But most of the stuff is auth. And when you're auth, like it's such a honey trap to like say like, oh yeah, we have authenticated scans. We can log in all over the place. Cool. But that also means you're beholden to that endpoint to be truthful, and and your way of counting is counting by patch, not by vulnerability, which is a different thing.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. We are out of time.
I feel like I was real ranty on this one. I hope that's okay.
Given the title, it had to be. It had to be this way. This is the only way to talk about this topic.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
Todd, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today. This was delightful.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Make sure you visit securityweekly.com/run0 to learn more. They do have a community edition, which is what I use at home, that you can play with to your heart's content. It is a lot of fun to play with. And stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to discuss the past 3 weeks' NPM incidents in this week's topic segment. Legacy tools flood you with alerts. Node Zero shows you what's actually exploitable. Horizon 3 AI's offensive security platform autonomously identifies attack paths, validates findings with real proof, and helps teams prioritize remediation based on true impact. No agents, no guesswork, no disruption. Just production-safe testing that mirrors how adversaries move in the real world. Stay ahead of credential abuse, privilege escalation, and lateral movement. Learn how Node Zero changes the game at securityweekly.com/Horizon3. Ransomware. Supply chain attacks, 0 days. Cyber threats don't wait, and neither should your defenses. With ThreatLocker, you're not just reacting to threats, you're stopping them before they start. Our Zero Trust endpoint protection locks down your environment with pinpoint control over what's allowed to run and what's not. No guesswork, no blind spots. Just proactive, built-for-now security that keeps your business moving. Want to see how a true default deny strategy works? Head over to securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker and take the first step towards shutting the door on threats before they even knock. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. In this week's topic segment, we're going to discuss all these NPM supply chain attacks that we've been seeing over the past 3 weeks. And I actually just put together a post on my Substack about this, mostly because I started to write them all up just so I could keep them clear in my head, because they've been kind of getting whirled around, and I've been confusing a feature from one attack to the other, and the first and the third are actually related. They think it's the same actor that did both of them, because there's some clear similarities between them. Some of the IOCs are the same. But yeah, just to kick this off, I think I included the dates in my write-up here. But the first one happened on August 26th. They called that the Singularity attack because they put that in the name of the repos that they created. The NX package was the one compromised. So one package got compromised. Apparently affected the VS Code extension also. And then the second one happened on September 8th, and that was a phishing attack against two maintainers of very popular packages. Yeah, you probably saw the headlines where it was billions of weekly downloads from these packages impacted by this. And then the third one impacted over 500 packages, and you'll see that called the Shai Hulud NPM compromise because, again, it looks like it was that first threat actor again that came back for this one. And they would put that in the name of the repos that they created. And they created those GitHub repos to basically post the credentials that they had stolen to make them easy for them to pick up just by posting them in a public repo. And yeah, so all of them seem to target both crypto and credentials. So it was kind of like an info stealer attack. If you installed any of these packages, the post-install script or the package itself, in the case of the second attack, would search, it's hoping to run on somebody's laptop, right? Because they're looking for cryptocurrency, they're looking for your SSH keys, they're looking for your AWS tokens from your environment variables, or maybe from your production environment where you have some of those same things in there. And stealing that stuff. So we haven't seen any like ransomware. This hasn't been linked to any larger attacks, but it could. But yeah, I think that's a good overview of everything that we saw here. The motive seemed to be stealing crypto, which I think the most crypto we saw stolen was $600. So it's kind of one of these cases. We've seen a lot of cases like this where attackers get access to potentially millions of machines and then mine $2 worth of Monero or something like that. Like the actual outcome, the actual payload is so dumb, and they could have done so much more with it, but they just don't for whatever reason.
I think the thing with this attack is that not that it was hugely successful. It was opportunistic, obviously automated. It made a lot of noise. Right? We haven't seen much fallout from it, but it's sort of like a warning shot, not to be full of FUD, right? This shouldn't be an, oh my God, you have to be aware. And if you're not, you're crazy and you're stupid. But it does it should make people want to look at the dependency chain and how things are interconnected. And that's always been the issue. It's never, there's one compromised spot and that's what happens, right? We have to be looking at these types of attacks holistically. This might not be it. This might not be headline news. Even all three of them together might not be headline news. I covered two of them, and by the third one, I was like, okay, whatever, let the rest of the team manage it. But it does say, we need to be looking, first of all, for the most obvious spots of compromise. And then we do need to be trying to figure out, have we fixed the problem? Are we still vulnerable? Or are we allowing the same things to come back? And when we do that, is there the potential for larger compromise? This is strategy. This isn't tactics. This is complete strategy. And failing to focus on the strategic is what eventually will lead to a bigger attack. I'm not saying that this is it, but holistically looking at the security, an organization security program, it's all about threat modeling. It's all about creating an overarching plan for it. And I think that's what I took away from it. Not that this is, oh my God, we keep having one attack after another against NPM and these maintainers. It's all right, let's just take a step back and see what we're missing.
Yeah, I think for me, the big concern coming out of this is just none of these seemed very difficult. Like the phishing email was well done, but any pen testing company in the world could have spun up that same thing and does every time they do a pen test. And like the whole digital software supply chain ecosystem just rides off of one engineer's credentials, one package maintainer's account, which is why I use that XKCD image. Everybody's seen like the one person in Nebraska, that thanklessly maintains this package that keeps the whole internet running. There is some truth to that. And that cartoon is from 2013, right? Like nothing's changed. Like, do you guys remember the left pad incident?
Mm-mm.
So there was an incident with one of the, so LeftPad was, again, one of these libraries that millions of different software packages depend on. So extremely simple, kind of like the, there was a few packages like that in these NPM compromises also. I forget the name of the color one, that was one of the big ones. But do very, very simple things. But if you suddenly remove that dependency, so this maintainer had some kind of falling out with the NPM folks, like they had some kind of disagreement, and he said, well, I'm just taking my packages and leaving. And so he just removed his packages from the repository, from the package distro center, and a million software packages builds broke because he decided to take his toys and go home. And that could have happened here, right? Like one of the things they could have done with this access is just deleted these packages and broken dependencies, broken builds everywhere. I mean, you're still going to be able to find a version of LeftPad or some of these packages somewhere, but you're going to have to go out manually and find it. You're going to have to override this kind of stuff because it won't be able to pull it live from the repo. But this could have been much, much worse, I think. And I don't know how we fix it, because that's how the whole software industry is built, just off of these dependencies that are managed by one person. Nobody knows the identity of this person. They don't know if they're, beholden to, countries that are not friendly with our country. We don't know who these people are, or if, one day they're just going to sell access to their package to somebody for the highest bidder.
Yeah.
I mean,
or if they
that's
have
a lot
been
of risk.
That person the whole time, like XEUtils,
right?
Somebody, that whole compromise was somebody who spent almost 2 years legitimately contributing to this open source project, and then decided to slip something nefarious in. And I think the only real solution is some type of consortium of open source maintainers. Just like with Kubernetes and things like that, you have to have some larger entity that can absorb these packages once they reach a certain threshold of download or utility or whatever that is, that will, I guess, pay people for them, pay people to take them on, absorb them. I don't know. Like, you need some type of pipeline that takes these packages and then puts them into a larger entity with responsibility for scanning and maintaining them. And that, for as many companies use them, for as many developers build them, there has to be some type of way to fund those things. And open source means you don't have to pay for it. So I'm not sure what that is, but at some point...
And they are. I do include some links in the article, some examples. There is more than ever financial and operational support for a lot of these critical patches. There's organizations dedicated to just recognizing that these packages are more critical than others. And that's why Google Project Zero focuses on some of these things. That's their whole mission statement, is to find those little bits in the XKCD comic, those foundational bits, and make sure they're as secure as they can be.
Yeah. And I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
I think we've seen this sort of example happen before with Heartbleed. Basically, the SSL TLS components were just kind of managed by a couple of people, and then eventually it was decided, okay, we need to have this as something solid that is more than just a couple people on their own time managing it. So there were new libraries that were stood up and open sourced and leveraged by, I'm pretty sure Google put a lot of money into it. For Chrome and for other things, in order to make sure that those libraries were getting updated and were something that could continue regardless of a single person.
Yeah, and I guess we have to define, we have to define when financial institutions are systemically important. We need to have the same kind of threshold for different packages and things like that. If you become systemically important, then there needs to be some type of tracking and oversight. I don't know, but there's so many of these things. And then I think the thing that I've mentioned before is if you're vibe coding and you accidentally pull 3/4 of an open source package without realizing it, there's all these, I think now that you have all these different repositories of code out there that things like Claude and other, coding assistants are pulling from, My real concern is, how do you tell, which version of that package you have? Because even if you stand up a new one, and like you may not even know what's in your supply chain if you're using generative tools to code these things. And so that's a whole different layer of risk of, their. Yeah.
Well, ASPM can help you with that. I mean, that's exactly what it's meant to do. It's, I'm not going to do any sort of pitching right now, but that's why it exists. Vulnerability scanning. That's what it's for.
So are we like, what's the future? I mean, I like the solution because that was on top of my head. Like, what is the solution? But for the near future, this is going to be a continuous issue. I mean, until more of these collectives, like the open source collective you mentioned and stuff, kind of get foothold.
I really don't know. Like, from an AppSec standpoint, from a development standpoint, it seems like so many of these packages are just almost frivolous. It's like a dozen lines of code or something like that. Like, should you really have a bunch of dependencies like LeftPad in your project? Because that's increasing your attack surface and reducing your resilience to these kinds of things. But yeah, that's more of a application security weekly question. Yeah, I can't answer that one.
I mean, one of the tactics some companies do is, I mean, obviously you want to have a local copy of all the repos, right? To kind of prevent, that's like standard basic practice.
Fallback.
And then delay updates, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. And so delay updates, not necessarily get the latest and greatest. So there are some different tactics, but these are all stopgaps.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like the community needs to be somewhat self-policing, but there's not really a great way to do that when you have a bunch of individual people writing individual things. I don't know how you pair people up and make sure that people are watching other people's packages.
I mean, that XV attack, I think, was a wake-up call for everyone. So, there's other packages that could be compromised. We don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like, we have to take that into consideration.
Yeah. I think we have to know that they are. When we have nation state adversaries who play the ultra long game, there's no way you would not be doing things like that.
Well, I mean,
I think
shady code has to do shady things, and you can detect shady things happening. So, I don't think you can keep it too secret, if you're actually using that backdoor access.
But that has been done with weakening actual cryptographic calls and
there are more subtle
mathematics.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, those were some subtle things that have been done in the past. I can't think of an example, but certainly things like that can be done where there's a slight weakening of a crypto library, which only a handful of people actually understand it, and they probably work at the NSA and a couple other places around the world. In which case, no one's really going to see that. And you put in a code update where it's like, okay, well, this had a bug in this function, so we're going to do this and call this now.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. Yeah, there are some subtle things. So no clear answers, but that's all the time we have for today's topic segment. Definitely something that people should be thinking about. I don't see this slowing down anytime soon. Some of these NPM attacks look like almost testing to me. Like the first one we're talking about was the first one that used AI, command line AI agents. Assume developers would have like Claude Code or something like that, and actually used prompts to find the stuff they were looking for on those systems. And then the last one we saw had a worm component. Was the first one we saw with a worm component. So this feels very much to me like proof of concepts, like somebody's working on next generation supply chain proof of concept malware. So I would expect to see a lot more of it.
They're sort of coming out, I know we're over, but they're sort of coming out pretty regularly. So it definitely feels like a cadence. They're not coming out at the same exact day and time of each week, but it definitely, like I said, by the time the third one came around, I was like, okay, this is obviously somebody trying different aspects of it, because they all look the same, but just enough different that we're incorporating new stuff each time and just trying to take you off guard. But at the heart of it are the same root problems, the fundamental problems of getting in, having the dependencies, having very little people, great grammar, having very few people looking at the whole supply chain, dependency chain. Where does it stop? How does it stop?
Well, we'll see what happens next week. Maybe we'll be talking about it again in future news segments. But that's all the time we've got for today's topic segment. Stick around and we'll be right back with the weekly enterprise news. Security Weekly and CyberRisk TV are headed back to one of the biggest identity security events of the year, Octane 2025, put on by Okta. Live September 24th through 26th from the vibrant city of Las Vegas, Octane 2025 brings together the best minds in identity, security, and technology innovation. And this year, we're turning up the volume. Security Weekly will be on site in full force with Mandy Logan and myself, Adrian Sanabria, leading the charge. Get ready for live-streamed executive interviews, exclusive on-site editorial coverage from SC Media, and brand new this year, a live-streamed episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. It's your chance to engage with identity leaders, dive into the future of AI security, and hang out with your favorite Security Weekly hosts. And here's the best part. Security Weekly listeners get an exclusive discount. Just head to securityweekly.com/Octane, register, and use promo code OKTNSCMA25 to get your conference pass for $200. Do your end users always, and I mean always, without exception, work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? I didn't think so. So my next question is, how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has an answer to this question: Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. Check it out at securityweekly.com/1Password. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW425 if you want to follow along as we go through the news, or for links to the articles that we're covering. All right, let's see what we've got today. As I mentioned in the intro, there is quite a bit funding and acquisitions. There's a lot going on, and it's one thing I think is interesting. We're seeing a bunch of the AI security startups get picked up. In fact, just yesterday, I saw two of them. Both Lakera, who most people know of because of the Gandalf game, got picked up by Checkpoint. I suspect we're starting to see some of the Balkanization going on here. This is an Israeli headquartered company picking up a Switzerland headquartered company. Because at first I was like, Checkpoint, like why would they go to Checkpoint? And then I remembered that they were based out of Switzerland, which I think was intentional. So I think we are starting to.
You mean like a geographic expansion or just market expansion, right? I guess.
Well, no, the whole. What is the right term? Not data residency, but
data sovereignty.
Yeah, data sovereignty. Like even Canada doesn't want to work with U.S. companies right now. A lot of Canadian companies, they don't want their data accessible to the U.S. government. So that's had a big impact in Europe as well. And I suspect we're going to see more acquisitions drawn along these political and geographic lines.
Yeah, but Checkpoint is a traditional network, and I think just I always hate it. Like Cisco is a classic one, right? When a super large company buys a really cutting edge young company,
mm-hmm.
what's going to happen? What's going to happen to that? So I'm a little dismayed by the news, but hopefully Lakera stays Lakera. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how any of these companies are doing in terms of sales, to be honest. Particularly, I'm much more bullish on the AI security companies that are focused on securing around model use and even governance than I am on the replace your SOC with AI companies. And I don't think a single one of the replace your SOC AI companies have been acquired yet, while we're seeing a bunch of the AppSec focused AI security companies getting picked up. So Pangea was another one picked up by CrowdStrike. A bunch with AI in the name: Calypso AI, Observo AI. I think Observo is more focused on data with an AI use case. So a lot of stuff that's maybe not AI in the traditional sense of building with AI technology, but trying to solve a problem that AI created, like with Calypso AI, or trying to help your AI rollouts like Observo. But that seems to be driving a lot of it, including some of the funding here as well. A lot of AI stuff starting to happen here. And my prediction from earlier this year, if we don't see acquisitions in some of the AI spaces, like the replace your SOC with AI ones, I don't think it's going to happen for them, because there definitely seems to be the appetite for doing acquisitions here, for doing fundings here. And it's happening now. So if by the end of the year any of these categories aren't getting love, I'm not sure they are going to get any next year, and we might start to see some pivots.
Yeah, and I think the reason why they're getting acquired is because they have AI in the name, and because they supposedly are doing something unique and special, and no one wants to miss the boat on the AI boat. So they're all hitching their wagon to an AI something or other, so that way they can capture some of the magic. And because the board says they have to do it, I was on a call today where someone was asking on the other side of the call was asking, hey, how can we use AI to do X? And the answer was basically, it doesn't really make sense to you use AI to do X, but we understand where the request is coming from.
Yeah, and I wonder how many of these companies are like truly like AI first versus bullied into AI because that's the only way that they got funding.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of it. I think that also part of what we're seeing now is that when you're talking about SecOps and AI taking over that role, there's this latent fear, right? And it's founded. I believe it's founded. There's this latent fear of what can happen, not just to the data, but to our people, to our organizations. And that's possibly why it's not getting as much traction, but also because realistically, we have to be careful with that. We have to be careful with the data. We have to be careful with the outputs. I play around with AI a lot, and the hallucinations are very odd and often unpredictable. And I'm not even talking about security data. That's not what I'm playing around with. And when it comes to some of this other maybe fluffier AI, and when it has to do with machine only, that's easier for humans to grasp, first of all. And secondly, it's easier to implement. And so I think it's a stepwise progression. I'm not sure that we won't ever see what you're talking about, Adrian. I don't necessarily think that we're going to see that huge uptick in the ops space in the next couple of years, because just like with autonomous cars, it's not like snap our hands and all of a sudden everything's perfect. We have to be careful with it.
Yeah. And like autonomous cars, the error rate's a big deal here. I mean, not as big a deal as something that can run over pedestrians, but still a pretty big deal. And the marketing I'm seeing is, this stuff is going to do things for you while you're sleeping. And with this error rate, we still have to have a human in the loop. I don't see how it's going to get much useful work. Maybe it does work to a point and then waits for a human to wake up and, give it the thumbs up or thumbs down on a bunch of stuff. Maybe it can still get some work done while we're asleep, but I still think a human's going to have to come in there.
But it's like coming back to your email after a holiday, right? How much work do you have to go through to account for that? And the best thing about AI is it can do some simple tasks really freaking quickly. And so if you
But the question is, Katie, the question is, when you come back from vacation, has it already sent a bunch of emails on your behalf? Or are those drafted emails waiting for you to check them first and then send them? Are you brave enough to let it send them without you checking it first?
Right. Even if you say, I want them sent, then you have to go back and do the, But if they're not sent, then you're like hanging your head in your hands going, oh my God, I've got 14 hours of cleaning up my damn email. How much did that help me? It did not help me. I'm more stressed than I was before my vacation.
If the emails are already written, I think that still helps. Even if maybe 16.
Does it if it says that you're offering to do XYZ multi-million-dollar project for free, right? Like if you can't check that before that email goes out, what kind of headache do you have there?
Oh, certainly. If you're just letting it do it fully autonomously. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't see that's too big of a leap for me. Fully autonomous AI, like it's got to be a really. I think we do see it for really specific use cases where the worst case scenario is not a big deal. I think we do see fully autonomous for that. But when the worst case scenario is I gave away $40 million of product for free, or, I get fired when I come back from my vacation for the emails my AI sent on my behalf. Like when the worst case scenario is that bad, I don't think we get there with this technology period ever. I don't know. What do you think, Eamon? You're pretty thoughtful about this kind of stuff and you're pretty deep into using a lot of it.
I mean, we'll get there eventually. But like right now, a lot of these AI things are at the level of a junior person. So you got to think of it as like when you hire a junior person, are you going to trust this junior person to craft an email and learn your voice and all that kind of stuff? It takes a superstar sometimes, a really good, just like a chief of staff or a virtual assistant. There's different levels, and so that eventually we will get to some level. But yeah, building in those checks to prevent the catastrophes. I mean, I've been playing with Replit, for example, their latest Agent 3. Mm-hmm. I've dropped Cloud Code and I'm just using Replit, and it's like amazing. It has testing built in, has all this kind of stuff. Costs a little more, but whatever, it's saving a lot of time.
So I did see a case. So we just in the topic segment talked about the NPM stuff, and I saw somebody vibe code a tool to search for whether or not you're compromised by the Shai Hulud one. And all you needed to do to see if you're compromised was to just plug in Shai Hulud and do a GitHub search on it on your repos, right? But he vibe coded a whole tool with like a README markdown that was like 18 pages long, built in Python to do the same thing, right? And at this moment, it occurred to me. I was looking at this last night. I was like, oh, when you don't understand how software works or how to solve a problem, but you can vibe code anything you want, this is what we end up with. We end up with a bunch of tools to do something that the GitHub search box solves perfectly fine.
It's like the modern version of when kids would search something in Google instead of going to the website itself. Like my mom thinks like everything is on Google. I'm like, these are individual websites. Like you can go directly to the website if you wanted to. It's almost the same thing.
Yeah.
I just had a discussion with my father, and he's about to be 82, and he's like, what are these AI overviews? So I explained, they're just basically pulling a bunch of stuff from a bunch of websites. He's like, I don't know if I can trust it. I'm like, so go to the website.
You can't.
Right. I'm like, but I was like, just go to the website. Like, just go to the website. Like,
yeah.
You've been doing this for 20 something years. Just go to the website. Like,
keep an eye on your dad. Make sure he doesn't start eating rocks or anything like that.
The good news is that he asks me now. Speaking of the Aging Awareness Day, I have I know where you are, Adrian. I have, I think, a decent sense of where Sean and Eamon are a little maybe behind us. It's a bizarre place when you start being the person your parents go to for questions. Thank God he comes to me.
My partner calls it, she often says she is not prepared for the toddler phase.
Her I'm not quite there, but thank God he comes to me for like any online or tech help. And my father-in-law actually was talking to my husband.
That's now two people I hope don't listen to this episode.
Yeah. Well, they don't. But my father-in-law was talking to my husband, and he was like, I got something funny. So all of a sudden I get these two texts. Is this phishing? I looked at it for 0.3 seconds. And I was like, yes, delete. Just delete.
Yeah.
Keep coming, please. Please just ask your friend and neighbor who's in tech, who's in security. Go to them, ask the questions. Don't feel stupid. The answer is
always yes, by the way. Yes. Every time. Earlier today, I get a text from my girlfriend's mom, and she's like, I'm pretty sure this is a scam. I'm like, trust your gut. It absolutely is. And it's one of these like, there's an Apple purchase and you have to call to confirm it or something like that. I'm Don't like, call. They would never word it like that. They wouldn't text you. Like none of these things would happen. So like their gut's correct. And what's the worst case scenario if you just delete the email or you just, kill the text? And also like half of these texts I get come from the Philippines country code +63.
Oh, I got a call from China the other day that it looked like was coming from New York. I checked the voicemail because I don't pick up if I don't know the number. And I'm like, even if this was real, I can't understand you. If you're telling me something real, what do you want me to do about it?
You know, something interesting is like, I always go to my dad. My dad's like super wise. So I go and ask him questions and I'm looking for that tidbit of wisdom. And then lately, past couple of years, I'll ask him something. He's like, just Google it. I'm like, what? Like, I'm like, thanks, what, Dad? It's just hilarious. So like, it's totally turning around.
Very funny.
But it's good advice. He continues to be wise.
So for the audience, check out the funding and acquisitions today if you want to learn more. I don't think we can spend much more time on it. There's just too much there, too much going on. The vibe check was interesting, though. The question asked was, do you think one-person security teams will become the norm as AI capabilities grow? And overwhelmingly, the answer was no. Security complexity keeps growing faster than AI. And I agree with that. I think if anything, I mean, Salesforce just laid off 4,000 people, and they said it's because AI is doing those jobs. Sure, Salesforce has 200,000 employees, 100,000. I don't know how many employees they have, but I think at any big company you can find 4,000, like 10% of the workforce where their job is just a simple task and easily replaceable. But yeah, security team, like the whole thing is critical thinking, right? Like the whole thing is, taking some new event, like you could have some new TTP or type of security event that has no precedent in the past. And a large language model is not going to know what to do with that because it wasn't trained on any of that. So I agree with that personally. Story number 3, I thought was really interesting. Kind of like a sober approach to using AI agents, coming, and I would expect nothing less coming from a bank or financial services. But I included it because I think it's a nice contrast to all the hype and we're going to 10x everybody, we're going to replace the SOC, like all the hype that we're hearing. I think it was interesting to hear this, because banks have been playing around with machine learning and automation, for 30, 40 years. I worked, my first big career job was at a payment processor owned by a bank. And, a lot of the stuff I did was automating things at scale before I transitioned into the security team. So I just thought this was an interesting perspective.
Yeah, it was a good article. I mean, I thought it was very interesting having an LLM specific to the financial industry that's trained with the financial models and with the things that a financial advisor would actually do. Recognizing that a one-on-one relationship, or even 10 customers or 50 customers to one human agent would not scale, and so leveraging agentic AI behind that would be something that could make that reasonable and actually workable. I thought that was very interesting, having a purpose-built LLM for the specific financial industry, and not just for finance, but specifically for UK finance. I thought that was pretty cool.
I think we're going to see more of that going forward, where, just with inference costs, like if we're going to use AI for all these things, I think OpenAI, it cost them $2 billion in 2024 just to serve inference, just to pay for the inference costs. And Microsoft just built a data center, with hundreds of thousands of GPUs, presumably just for inference as well. And I think we're going to need more specialized, more efficient models to do a lot of this stuff.
I mean, they're already training it on everything. So what else can you train it on? You've got to figure out how to make it a more purpose-built, more modular type agents that then maybe and talked about this. It talked about using something like ChatGPT to handle the actual queries and questions from the audience with the customers, and then leveraging the actual financial LLM for the answers that then would be taken from that.
Yeah. Yeah, to quote here, we don't want to be limited to the large hyperscale models. There's a fantastic ecosystem of open source models that we want to encourage. And the fact that we could create a financial LLM that is UK-centric in the UK is something we found very appealing.
Something along this line is, it's not like new, but the latest thing is context engineering. Yeah. So basically, English is the new programming language. And so really writing a good prompt, a good context, managing the context, is like the thing. So maybe like a dual purpose, or I guess there's two kind of different approaches to solve the same problem.
Yeah. Yeah, with a general model, you have to be very verbose. Like the more verbose about what you want, and the more guardrails you include in the prompt, the more accurate your answer is going to be, and probably the less chance of hallucination or misunderstanding. Yeah, makes sense. Context.
It's interesting when I'm playing around with it. I try to look at the reasoning and the thinking and try to learn from the response, because it'll often supply what it interpreted the prompt as, and try to figure out, oh, okay. And for different models, it's different, right? Like if I go to, my ChatGPT versus my Gemini versus my Perplexity versus, Copilot, whatever it is. Wow, that was a weird pronunciation. Then if you're using multiple, you have to learn the styles, but it's just like, it's not like learning a new person exactly. I don't want to anthropomorphize it yet, but same concept. You have to learn the model you're working with and learn the nuances. And you definitely can if you are reading what what the tool's interpretation of your prompt was. That helped me a lot.
Yeah. Let's see what else we have here. There's story number 4 is a guide to MCP security. Not a whole lot to talk about there. We're going to see a lot of these guides come out. This is just the latest one that I saw, so I thought I'd include it in here. Maybe it has some additional stuff. I think it came from Docker, this particular one.
It read like it was AI generated, to be honest.
It did.
There were a lot of bullets, a lot of
it looked like some useful stuff in there, though.
Definitely useful stuff. And I think MCP is something that was going to have to be secured and looked at, since it's not even a year old yet, but everything's going all in on it. So, yeah, I just thought the article was just interesting, the way it was broken out into those different components.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, based on what Katie's saying, like you can almost tell what they used to create some of these, because like some of these are way too verbose. Others are better at being concise. Like a lot of that does depend on the prompt, but different models and different services based on their the system prompting can change a lot. Have almost fingerprints to them that you can spot over time. The next one here, story number 5. I don't know if any of you had time to read this from a good friend of mine, Nick, who's also a security tinkerer. Had a lot of fun with this one, where he's kind of linking, and I think he was inspired by somebody's talk that somebody gave, where they kind of linked the 2008 Great Recession and the subprime mortgage lending crash to vibe coding, and vibe coding having an analogous effect in a number of years ahead.
Right. So, and specifically vibe coding and just having code get generated when it's something that's not even well understood by the person who's actually doing the vibe coding or getting that information. And the fact that we're kind of building through vibe coding, there's the potential for building software on a house of cards.
I think it's almost impossible to tell, but I mean, generally the take I've had is there's a lot of terrible code out there already. There's a lot of code that's built on a house of cards. Like we didn't need AI for the internet to be flooded with bad software. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's too early for me to even guess at this point. Like
I love this analogy. Yeah. I love this analogy. I think there was a quote I just found that was super interesting. But honestly, this is kind of, I'll see if I can find the quote, but this is going to be actually a reflection of society at large. In fact, where we're just relying on GPT answers, and these answers are not accurate. They're hallucinating. And because I mean, when I use it in daily work, I see things that are wrong. I'm like, I don't think this is right. Can you like double check this? And oh, you're right. I'm like, dude. So,
but without your experience and your gut to say that looks wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. So his line where he says there's going to be the disappearance of experts. That's already happening, right? Yeah. Like that one person we talked a few weeks ago doesn't want to read the book on something. He's going to take the book, dump it in GPT, and then ask for the summary. I'm like, how are you going to learn that way? So.
Yeah, and I mean the example I gave earlier, where like if you don't understand the problem well before you start vibe coding, everything that comes after is going to be wrong, right?
Yeah, he says velocity is intoxicating, and honestly, it is. It really is.
Yeah, I'm sure you get some dopamine from that rush of, oh, I made a thing. Look at this. Look at all this, and it works. It compiles. It runs.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't done that much. I haven't really done any real vibe coding yet, but I need to jump into that just so I have the experience, so I understand that feeling. But it's
just clear your schedule. Make sure you have nothing else planned afterwards.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's like a drug trip, whatever that may be.
Yeah. But. All right. Yeah, moving on here. Let's see what else we have. What should we cover? So another good essay from, who's this from? This is from Frank. What is Frank's full name? Frank Wong, I think it is. Frank Wang. A lot of great stuff. You can really go down the rabbit hole with, and his Substack is called Frankly Speaking. But he's got a lot of great takes, and I love this kind of style of writing essays where you build on other things that you've written, and he does a really good job of this, which kind of leads you down the rabbit hole of reading a bunch of his stuff. And it's not super unique. I think people have pointed out that a lot of the work we do in security doesn't yield much value. There's a lot of busy work generation coming from products, and people are happy to do that busy work that these systems spit out without much thought about whether or not it's actually doing anything. So security theater, in other words. Bruce Schneier's been talking about security theater for decades now. But yeah, it's he talks about the kind of being trapped in the bubble, lacking the context that we need to understand what we actually need to be working on. I think it's particularly tough in security because security covers everything, right? Like there's just so much ground to cover. We can't be an expert in everything. So often we dive into things without the necessary context, understanding what tools we need, what processes we need.
Yeah, I've been reading Frank's writing for a while. He takes the a good critical approach towards how we do security, which is kind of similar to some of the things I've been saying. Did we?
Yeah, he had to run. He had to run early. So goodbye to Sean.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with a lot of the stuff he said. I don't know what the right word is, but it takes a fresh approach towards security. Even if you look at the titles, security needs to build again. We have too many tools, those kind of things. So it makes sense. He's actually coming from like a new perspective, like not like a seasoned security person, but like as an engineering manager, engineering person. So it's interesting.
Yeah, Ross Hollyluke is like that also. Like he's not been in security terribly long, but comes with like a deep background in another space, and I find those perspectives really useful.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Number 7, we don't need to cover. We covered that in the topic segment. So probably remove that later, redo the show notes here. Let's see. Botnets are a big thing again. All of a sudden seeing botnets in the headlines. We saw one run by an Alaskan in Oregon, took down his botnet, which was apparently like as big as some of the biggest botnets out there, just run by one person. And it was, again, one of these IoT botnets. And now Cloudflare was talking about blocking an 11.5 terabit per second DDoS attack. So apparently there's still enough of these IoT devices out there. And this is, I don't want to say it's shocking to me, but Mirai was first assembled in 2016, I want to say, almost a decade ago. Or maybe that is right at about a decade ago. Where somebody just realized, hey, there are millions of devices with admin on the public internet. I can write a piece of Linux malware and just take over all these things and have them do my bidding. Use them, put together a botnet. And the fact that 10 years later you can still do that is kind of baffling to me. I would have thought everything would have been swept up by now. I don't know if it's because people are putting new devices out there, or they're finding new default credentials on things, or maybe they're using vulnerabilities to scoop up some of this stuff. But I wouldn't have thought we'd still be chasing this 10 years later, that people would still be able to successfully build these things 10 years later. Even like early on with Mirai, somebody wrote something called BrickerBot, where I guess it's like a gray hat or something like that. Somebody decided, I know how to solve this problem. I'll just create a worm that will go out and just brick the firmware of all these devices. Then nobody gets to use them as a botnet or, for legitimate use either. But they're still doing it. There's still IoT botnets that apparently are stronger than ever. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't think IoT is going to go away anytime soon, because just the nature of a hardware device is that it's hard to update, or it doesn't get updated often. So you find a vulnerability or a package that was vulnerable, but that device is not being updated actively. Take any, cheap internet router, for example, right? It's going to get, the hardware itself could have a firmware vulnerability that won't be known until later, but it's out of EOL. It's EOL, right? So
yeah,
it's going to be a constant issue.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no lack of IoT devices being connected to the internet. But I feel like most of them aren't exposed to the public internet, right? Like at some point, we figured out how to use an IoT device, how to allow it to talk to a server somewhere without exposing it to the public internet. Right?
Except cameras. Cameras, they just expose them to the internet because...
Well, they want to access them remotely and they don't know how to use a VPN or something like that, or they don't bother to stand up a VPN, but our Nest devices, our smart TVs, that kind of stuff, none of those need to be exposed. I feel like the refrigerators, like those are the vast majority of new IoT devices being added, but I mean, they're building these things out of something, it's just, maybe it's something I need to dive deeper into and understand where they're finding these things, like what, because it used to be Hikvision cameras, right? Like 50% plus of Mirai were Hikvision cameras. So I'm kind of curious to dive into what these botnets are comprised of these days. I don't know if it mentions it in the, targets network video recorders and other IoT devices. Not a lot of specifics there, but again, cameras. It's cameras again. Of course, network video recorders are powerful because they have to record like 4K 1080p video from 20 different surveillance cameras at once, right? So I imagine the hardware is pretty beefy on them.
Yeah, NVRs and Wi-Fi routers.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Be the thing. Because, if someone wants to buy a cheap router made, in a cheap place, I don't know.
I wonder if is it somebody buying a Wi-Fi router, or is it the thing that your ISP hands you and the ISP is messing up at scale? So then like everything that ISP, every cable modem plus Wi-Fi thing that they've handed out is vulnerable.
I'm going to guess the knockoff brand kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Because ISP managed stuff, all they do right now, they give you a cable, modem and router and everything all in one. Yeah. And they're managing that. They're updated. You're like, it's just a black box. So that's the approach they're doing right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but if they misconfigure that thing, and then multiply that by every customer, that's where I'm thinking like that would be an easy place to quickly put together a botnet. If all 65,000 of their customers have a vulnerable cable modem, right?
Yeah.
All right. So story number 10, we've got some research here, and I started to read this paper. I haven't had time to go through it completely, but it just struck me as not impossible, but impossible at scale. And so what they're claiming here is that they're not only reproducing the, something that can exploit, and it's just weird how they say it, reproducing CVEs, from CVE entries to verifiable exploits. So in my past, hunting down how a vulnerability works and how it could be exploited, I can rarely, I'm not sure I remember a single case where I can just do that from the CVE details. Like usually the details are very vague. In a lot of cases, there is no information you can find, because the vendor didn't want details included in there, and the vendor was the one that submitted the CVE. In some cases, you have to go read an academic paper. In some cases, you have to go read a blog post somewhere, or you have to go find a POC of the exploit on GitHub and analyze it. And they're talking about automating this, including creating an environment where they can exploit the CVE. Like, I just don't think the information is there with most vulnerabilities to be able to do this. So I need to dive in more and see if I'm missing something. It could be like only for certain vulnerabilities are they able to do this. I don't know.
Wasn't there an organization that was going through all the open source repos and trying to discover vulnerabilities? Like there was some initiative to do that?
I mean,
this could be a good like hook into that, or good.
There have been, I don't think they're trying to find new vulnerabilities though, right? Like they're trying to validate whether or not existing ones are exploitable. That was the impression that I got from this. But yeah, to your point, Eamon, like the EU put together a contract for a bug bounty for some of the biggest vulnerabilities out there. And that this is years and years ago. Google Project Zero does that. There's a lot of projects out there that look to discover vulnerabilities at scale in critical packages. But that wasn't my takeaway from this.
I see. I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, they're taking existing CVEs and making exploits for it. Well, I guess that's eventually going to happen.
Yeah. And they even share the cost, an average cost of $2.77 per CVE.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, apologies to the audience. Didn't have time to dig into this more. If you do and you understand this better than we do, let me know. Feel free to share with us, comment.
I'm sure there'll be a public GitHub version of this soon.
Yeah. Well, so I think a lot of I think they do share some of the research. So I think there is some stuff that you can dig into that was output from this research project. Is that so, Gus? Wow.
Apparently he has a very definitive point of view.
Yeah. Gus has opinions on this paper.
Gus has many opinions. Yeah.
All right. Story number 11. I labeled a dumpster fire, and I don't think this is too surprising. The media world publishes stories as quickly as they can because they need lots of clicks. It's just how the industry is made up, is how it's designed. So it's not too surprising that stories have been written on fake AI generated stuff. Which is basically this story. I think the headline is Wired and Business Insider editors duped by completely bogus AI using journalists who made up towns and people that don't exist. So I don't know if it was somebody looking for attention but yeah, I mean, BuzzFeed, all their stories are written up like it's all automated. It's all AI now, right? Didn't they fire all the journalists?
No way.
Yeah.
The fact that it's funny, the author had the same impression I did. Like, I was surprised that Wired got duped. He's like, this is less surprising for Business Insider.
Yeah.
And more surprising for Wired. I'm like, ouch.
It is, but I mean, Wired is still playing that game, trying to get clicks, trying to get, they still have advertisers on their website. So,
I love Wired.
I love Wired too.
So good. Yeah.
Not everything published has quite the same level of attention. Yeah. Wired's been killing it. They've had a lot of really good exclusives. Wired and 404 Media are probably my two favorite sources of good journalism, good cybersecurity journalism. Well, and tech and AI also.
Oh, in general, like I usually finish Wired like cover to cover. It's kind of like sit down and just look forward to getting. Unfortunately, it's not on Kindle anymore. It kind of sucks.
It's the only physical magazine I get.
Yeah, they canceled the Kindles. Well, I think there was a whole thing about it, but.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of publishers are not on Kindle, and just Kindle magazines just kind of stopped. I'm like, dude, I was getting so many magazines on Kindle. It was amazing. But yeah.
Yeah, so they say we made errors here. The story. Oh, so this wasn't. So this was. So you can go write for Wired, right? Like me or you could go write for Wired. So what happened here is somebody submitted stories to Wired that wasn't fully vetted, and their content wasn't vetted. So that's what happened here. It wasn't like a Wired journalist got suckered by a source, making up AI generated stuff. It's that somebody wanting to publish stuff on Wired wasn't properly vetted.
They had a good write up too, like even for security teams, right? How they handle incident well when they have a good write up on what happened and how they screwed up. Well, Wired had a good article on how they messed up.
Noting they only figured things out when the freelancer refused payment via traditional systems. Yeah, when they asked to be paid in Monero, that's a red flag. I don't know if they actually asked to be paid in Monero, but Wired actually published a whole article titled "How Wired Got Rolled by an AI Freelancer."
Yeah.
And this was back in May. They say, we retracted a story in May. Here's what happened.
That's hilarious.
Wow. I mean, growing pains, as AI generated stuff becomes more common, I think folks are going to be, as new scams emerge, they get a few people early on and then we learn to spot them. So.
But they start off saying, if anyone should be able to catch an AI scammer, it's Wired.
Yeah.
So it looks like they have to improve their systems, maybe, add some automation and vetting and stuff.
Yeah.
We report often and aggressively on AI slop.
Yeah, I mean, this had to hurt for them, right?
Yeah.
All right, on to our squirrel story.
We still love you, Wired.
We forgive you.
Yeah.
We can easily forgive that. So, yeah, speaking of my favorite sources for journalism, 404 Media has an amazing story titled AI-Powered Animal Crossing Villagers Began Organizing Against Tom Nook. So what this guy did, and this is just, so extra. This is just the amount of time and skills you have to take the old GameCube version of Animal Crossing, run it in an emulator, and like figure out how to shim this old GameCube game in such a way that you can power the villagers with an LLM. Like, holy crap. Like the amount of effort that went into this, totally worth it, by the way, for our enjoyment here. But how did you guys like this? Or not like it?
Talk about rabbit hole. I was waiting for Katie, but
yeah, I was just coming off mute to make sure Gus doesn't have a point of view. I thought it was hysterical. I mean, this guy went to a lot of trouble for this, and he did say that there was a precedent for some of this, so it wasn't like there hadn't been some work done before it. But I think it's really an interesting case study in what somebody can do with a little creativity, but the unintended consequences. I don't want to spoil the article because I definitely was laughing. I don't want to spoil it for anybody listening or watching, but some of the unintended consequences, it's kind of like, this is why we have to keep an eye on AI right now. And we're not just, letting it take over everybody's job, because we also need a human in the loop for a lot of these things. And in this case, it was pretty funny. But, if you want to make sure that we're, security consequences, unintended security consequences, or business intelligence consequences, or financial consequences, or any of these kinds of consequences, gotta keep your eye on the ball there.
Yeah, and just to emphasize the technical accomplishment here, I'm just going to read an article or a paragraph from the article. In this article, who wrote this? This is Matthew Galt which is not one of the normal 404 guys. So I guess they have contributors now. Fonseca used a Dolphin emulator running the original GameCube Animal Crossing on a MacBook to get the project working. According to his blog, an early challenge was just getting the AI and the game to communicate. The solution came from a classic technique in game modding, IPC, interprocess communication via shared memory. The idea is to allocate a specific chunk of the GameCube's RAM to act as a mailbox. My external Python script can write directly into that memory address, and the game can read from it, he said in the blog. I mean, it's like doing brain surgery on a 25-year-old game to plug it into modern AI. It's amazing. I love it.
It's crazy. Yeah, I'm reading the actual blog where he goes into detail, and he wrote the encoder and because Animal Crossing had its own encoding language, quote unquote, kind of like HTML. So he had to translate that. That's just fascinating.
Sorry, 24-year-old game. Yeah, amazing. All right. And yeah, we're not going to tell you what the villagers said, because that's the fun part. That's the part where you have to go read the article, enjoy that yourself. But yeah, I think the title says it. They apparently think Tom Nook is gouging them with his prices.
And there's a YouTube video too, so it's even more entertaining.
Yeah. Everything was. He's got several YouTube videos that he uses to chronicle the progress of the project and demonstrate it. So that's fun to check out as well. All right. Thank you so much, Katie, Eamon, for joining me today. We unfortunately lost Jackie before the news and Sean during the news, but still two of you went the distance with me. I appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Big thanks to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Next week, we will be live from Okta's Octane Conference in Las Vegas. We'll be doing live interviews on Wednesday and Thursday, and next week's Enterprise Security Weekly will be live from the show floor as well. Mandy Logan will be joining me for that episode, and maybe Jackie as well. I hear she has a very busy week, so we're not sure if she's going to be able to join us on Thursday, but we'll see. Check it out. We'll see who I'm able to bring along as a co-host. See you then.